My name is Elise Turner. I am 34 years old, and once upon a time, I thought my life was everything I had ever dreamed of. I had a career I worked hard for, a husband I adored, and a home that felt warm and steady. People would look at us, Mark and I, and say we had it all. I believed them. But sometimes what looks whole from the outside is already cracked on the inside. Sometimes the life you think is permanent turns out to be temporary. It began slowly. Doesn't it always? Mark and I met in our mid-20s. I was working as a marketing coordinator at a small publishing company, and he was finishing his residency as a doctor. He was tall, confident, the kind of man who filled a room without trying. I was quieter, more reserved, but he noticed me right away. That first night we met, he asked if he could walk me home, and I still remember the way the city lights reflected in his eyes as he told me about his dream of opening his own clinic one day. I believed in him so fiercely. I believed in us. We got married 3 years later in a garden wedding surrounded by family and friends. I wore my mother's veil, and he looked at me like I was the only person alive. Our vows were simple but sincere. I'll always stand by you. I'll never stop choosing you. I never imagined a day would come when he would take those words back. In the beginning, marriage was good. We lived in a modest 2-bedroom apartment downtown, saving money for the future. I worked long hours at the publishing house, and Mark's schedule at the hospital was brutal. There were nights when we barely saw each other, but when he came home, he'd collapse into couch beside me, and we'd laugh about the chaos of our lives. When Mark finally opened his clinic, it felt like a victory for both of us. I had supported him through the lean years, cutting coupons, skipping vacations, working overtime so he could put every cent into his dream. I was proud of him. I was proud of us. But dreams have a way of changing people. At first, it was subtle. Mark started coming home later and later. He said it was paperwork, patient emergencies, networking dinners. I believed him, of course I did. That's what you do when you trust someone. I didn't notice the shift until it was too late. One evening, I was preparing dinner, roast chicken, his favorite, when the phone buzzed on the counter. It was his. He'd left it at home. I shouldn't have looked, but something tugged at me, a quiet unease I couldn't name. The screen lit up with a message, "Can't wait to see you tonight. Last night was perfect." My stomach dropped. My hands went cold. I stared at the words until they blurred. For a moment, I told myself it was a patient, a friend, a mistake. But deep down, I already knew. When Mark came home that night, his face was flushed from the cold air, his smile easy. He kissed my cheek like nothing was wrong. I stood there, tense, the phone still heavy in my hand. "Mark," I said, my voice shaking. He paused, sensing something. "What's wrong?" I held up his phone. "Who is she?" His face drained of color. He didn't even try to pretend. He didn't even lie. "Elise," he whispered, "please, let's talk about this." Talk. As if words could stitch together a heart already splitting apart. The days after were a blur. He confessed the truth. Her name was Marissa, a pharmaceutical rep who visited the clinic. He said he hadn't meant for it to happen, that it just did. He said he still cared for me, but he didn't say he loved me. Not anymore. The betrayal cut deeper than I thought possible. I had built my world around him. I had sacrificed years, energy, pieces of myself so he could rise. And now, when the clinic was thriving, when our life should have been easier, he had found someone else to stand beside him. I moved into the guest room. I couldn't bear to share a bed with him, not while I smelled another woman's perfume lingering on his shirt. He tried to talk to me, but his words were empty. Apologies, excuses, promises. I didn't want to hear them. The worst part wasn't even the affair. It was the way he looked at me now, like I was an obligation, a chapter he had outgrown. One night, I found him sitting at the kitchen table, head in his hands. I stood there, waiting for him to notice me. When he finally looked up, his eyes were tired, resigned. "Elise," he said softly, "I think we should separate." The words hit me like a blow. Separate. As if our marriage were nothing more than furniture to be divided, space to be rearranged. My knees felt weak, but I forced myself to stand tall. "Is that what you want?" He hesitated only a moment. "Yes." And just like that, 8 years of love and promises dissolved into silence. I wish I could tell you I screamed at him, that I threw his belongings out the window, that I told him he would regret this for the rest of his life. But I didn't. I just nodded, numb, and walked away. The next day, he packed his things. I watched him carry his clothes, his books, the framed photographs from his clinic. He left behind the coffee mug I had given him on our first anniversary, the one that said "World's Best Husband." I stared at it on the counter, a cruel reminder of everything we had lost. When the door finally closed behind him, I sank to the floor. The silence in the apartment was unbearable. I pressed my face to my knees and wept until my body ached. The days blurred into weeks. I went to work, smiled at coworkers, answered emails, but inside I was hollow. At night, the bed was too big, the silence too loud. I scrolled through my phone, tempted to call him, to beg him to come back, but pride kept my fingers still. Friends tried to comfort me. "You'll be okay," they said. "Time heals." But time felt like an enemy, dragging me through hours I didn't want to face. The worst moment came one Saturday morning. I went to the farmer's market to distract myself, and there he was, Mark, standing with Marissa, laughing at something she said. He looked so at ease, so happy, like the years we shared were a costume he had taken off. He saw me. For a heartbeat, our eyes locked. His expression shifted, guilt, pity, but not love. Never love. I turned away before the tears could fall. I walked fast, then ran, my chest tight, my hands trembling. When I finally got home, I collapsed on the floor and sobbed. But somewhere in those tears, a new thought emerged: he was gone, and no amount of grief would change that. If I was going to survive, I had to stop waiting for him to come back. So I began again. It wasn't easy. The apartment felt like a tomb, filled with memories of us. I sold the couch we bought together, repainted the walls, rearranged the furniture. It was my way of reclaiming the space, making it mine. I also went back to school. For years, I had put my own ambitions aside so Mark could pursue his dream. But I had always wanted more than just marketing. I wanted to write. I enrolled in evening classes for creative writing, something I had once dismissed as impractical. Now it felt like salvation. The first night I sat in that classroom, notebook open, pen trembling in my hand, I felt alive for the first time in months. The professor asked us to write about a turning point in our lives. My words poured out like a flood. That's when I realized, pain can destroy you, or it can rebuild you. Slowly, I rebuilt. I joined a yoga studio, started cooking healthy meals, called old friends I had lost touch with. I even adopted a rescue dog, a scruffy terrier mix named Milo, who followed me from room to room as if afraid I would disappear. Some nights were still hard. I'd lie in bed, listening to the city hum outside, and wonder if Mark thought of me at all. But those thoughts came less often, and when they did, they hurt less. Months passed. I finished my writing program with distinction. One of my short stories was published in a local magazine. For the first time, I was achieving something for me, not for a husband, not for a marriage, but for Elise. Then one afternoon, nearly a year after he left, I got an email. From Mark. I heard about your story in the magazine. Congratulations. I'm proud of you. Can we meet? My heart raced as I read the words. A year ago, I would have dropped everything to see him. But now? Sitting in my sunlit apartment with Milo at my feet, I realized something. I didn't need him anymore. I closed the laptop without replying. For the first time in a long time, I smiled. And then, one evening, the past came knocking. Literally. I had just returned from dinner with friends when there was a knock at my door. Milo barked, his small body tense. I opened it cautiously, and froze. Mark. He looked different. Thinner, more tired. The confidence that once radiated from him was gone, replaced by something heavier. Elise, he said softly. Can I come in? Every instinct screamed no. But part of me, the part that had once loved him more than life, stepped aside. He walked in, glancing around the apartment. You changed everything, he murmured. Yes, I said. I had to. He sat down on the couch, his hands clasped. I shouldn't be here. But I needed to see you. I crossed my arms. Why? He looked up, his eyes shining with something I couldn't quite place. Because I made the biggest mistake of my life. Marissa, it didn't work out. She wanted things I couldn't give. And I realized, too late, that you were the one who stood by me through everything. My chest tightened, but not with longing. With anger. Mark, I said coldly, do you have any idea what you put me through? Do you know how it felt to watch you walk away like our marriage was disposable? Like I was disposable? He flinched. I know. And I regret it every day. For a moment, I saw the man I had once loved, the man who had walked me home under city lights, who had promised me forever. But that man no longer existed. And I wasn't the same woman who had begged him silently to stay. I don't love you anymore, I said quietly. He blinked, as if the words stunned him. Elise. No, I cut him off. You chose her. You broke us. And I rebuilt myself without you. I'm not going back. Tears filled his eyes, but I felt no satisfaction. Only finality. He stood slowly, nodding. I understand. As he walked to the door, Milo barked again, his little body fierce. Mark looked back once, then left. This time, when the door closed, I didn't collapse. I didn't cry. I felt light, like I had finally put down a weight I had carried too long. One evening, as I sat on my balcony watching the sunset, I realized I had survived betrayal, heartbreak, loneliness. I had rebuilt my life piece by piece. I felt free. Months later, I published my first book, a collection of short stories about women finding their strength after loss. The launch party was small but joyous. My parents beamed, and my friends hugged me. And somewhere out there, I knew Mark probably read the reviews, probably saw my name on the shelves. Maybe he regretted letting me go. But that was no longer my concern. Because my story wasn't about him anymore. It was about me. I often think back to the night I found that message on his phone, the night my world crumbled. Back then, I thought it was the end of everything. I thought I would never recover. But endings are just beginnings in disguise. I lost a husband, yes. But I found myself. I found my voice, my passion, my strength. And maybe, in the near future, I'll find love again, not the kind that consumes you, but the kind that nurtures you. My name is Elise Turner. I am 34 years old, and my life is no longer what I thought it would be. It is better. Because I am finally living it for me.